and welcome to the Growth Through Grief podcast, where we interview individuals just like you who are on their own journey from grief to growth, along with mental health experts, growth guides, all with the purpose of helping you heal better, improve mind, body, and spirit, and find your new purpose from the tragedy and the loss that you have experienced. As I said, I'm Tom Pacello. I'm your host. I'm also a fellow widower, having lost my beautiful bride, Judy, of 18 years we were married, and I lost her about 6 years ago now. So my guest today is an aspiring author and consultant. It's John Lewis III. Hi, John. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. John's mission is to teach people how to find the better version of themselves through his practice. John's upcoming book, Cook Away Your Grief, it documents his own grief journey from the loss of his wife, Kim, also of 18 years. And that was 7 years ago for John. He is on a new mission and purpose now. And cooking, as you could tell from the name of his book, played an important role in that. And I definitely want to explore that with John. Welcome, John Lewis.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for giving me the time, Tom. I mean, it's been a marvelous but crazy journey.
Yeah.
Put it that way. I mean, when you go through a loss, when you go through any type of grief, the first thing you do is shocking. It takes time to figure out where you are.
Yeah.
For me, like I said, like you talked about in your title, cooking was a big part of helping me to find who I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
and when we do go through that loss, John, we do think sometimes we're going crazy. There were moments where I thought I was losing my mind, like how could this be happening, and an unreality to it. And then you do go through a complete identity loss, and you have to find a new identity. And it's so cool that you found one in cooking. Now, before we get there, though, I always like to start at the beginning. And to me, our conversations, this is a love story, right? And I want to hear about that love story. And the love story had a start. How did you and Kim meet?
First off, I'm going to tell you this story, and oddly enough, you're not going to even believe it. That's how crazy it was. It actually started back in 1978, way before I met my wife. My father happened to be the best friend of Kim's uncle in 1978.
Wow.
My father, unfortunately, did some very bad things in his life. And Kim's uncle was involved in many of those bad things. Kim and I didn't know until 1990. We met in 90 at Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. And I never would have met her if I didn't have a fist fight with my best friend now.
Oh, no.
He was my roommate in college. We lived off campus. And we had such a blowout that it caused me to walk on the campus to look for housing. So I go up there, and I end up meeting another friend of mine who I had no idea he was going to Hampton either.
Mm-hmm.
He's from New Jersey. So we start talking, and he says to me, he goes, there are so many people from New Jersey. You got to get in touch with them. And then he goes, there's this girl named Kim. She's got a car, and she lives no more than 20 minutes away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Got to meet her. He said, but I forget her telephone number, and I forgot what door she saved in. He goes, but I'll find it.
Yeah.
Then he says, I have to go to the mailroom to pick up a package for my mom. She left me some money. I said, okay, I'll go with you. Went with him. I'm thinking it's going to be crowded. We go there, there's just two girls there. He looks over. He says, yo, remember that girl Kim was telling you about? That's her right there. I look at her. And Tom, seriously, my entire world went black.
Cupid's arrow.
I didn't see anything else but her.
Yeah.
Then when she was talking, we were talking, all I could hear was her.
Yeah.
A couple of days later, we met up with each other and we started walking around campus together. Then we found out that there were so many different clubs that we had gone to in New Jersey
Mm-hmm.
and incidences that occurred in these clubs that you had to be there
Mm-hmm.
in order to know. So then we ran track together. We ran track. And what was interesting, that's how I met my other friend
Mm-hmm.
from New Jersey. He happened to be cool with him because of the fact that he ran track in high school and they used to have these dual meets together. Then there was a major meet that occurred in New Jersey. It was called the Meet of Champions.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see him all the time. And what was interesting was I probably had seen Kim, never met her.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have this blowout. My dad and her uncle are best friends. It gets even crazier. My dad used to live next door to my wife's father in high school.
Oh, wow.
It gets even
Next door neighbors. Yeah.
Tom, it gets even crazier than that. My dad used to date her aunt in high school. You know, I mean, we found all this out because one day Kim's mom ended up calling saying that her uncle passed away and she needs to come to New Jersey for a funeral.
Mm-hmm.
When we go up there, that's when we find, when I say literally, I come in and my father is sitting there. And I hadn't seen my father in 5 years at this point.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I'm like, what? And then that's when all the stories start coming out. And that's when we find that Kim's uncle had gone to jail, but he had gone to jail because my dad went to jail. They were involved in the same thing. And so our life, we ended up looking at each other. First off, we thought maybe we need to take some blood tests just to make sure. But you know, hey, thank God that wasn't the case. But it was crazy because from there, we felt, you know what, this couldn't be coincidence.
Yeah.
It had to be destiny in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So, you know, from that point, we had 18 years together, 2 beautiful kids. Awesome. We lived out in West Orange, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Things were awesome, you know. But it was an interesting situation because when I lost her, I really felt like I lost my right arm because I met this woman when I was 18 years old. She passed away when we were 44. So, you know, all that time together, I was lost for a few years after her passing. Mind you, I have 2 kids and I'm trying to figure out my oldest daughter, she happened to go to the same university that I met my wife in 1990.
Oh, that's excellent.
It bittersweet because when I got down there to drop her off,
yeah, all those memories had to be flooding back.
It came like it wasn't a flood; it was a tidal wave. It was interesting, but again, I am a firm believer that there is no coincidence. Nothing's random. My daughter had an awesome experience in Hampton. My youngest daughter is now a senior at Brandeis. And I had no idea how I was going to be able to manage 2 young ladies. I mean, Tom, I had to learn everything. Like I said, cooking was one thing. But, I mean, I had to learn how to braid hair. And I have no hair. So I had to learn how to do this. You know, then what really changed me was the fact of I had to now understand women in a different manner. My youngest daughter, comes up to me one day. She came from school, and I said, "Baby, how's your day?" And she just started crying. And I said, "What happened?" And she said, "My boyfriend cheated on me." I'm sitting there, and now at this point she's 16, and I'm like, "Oh my, okay." So now the father in me is ready to kill this guy.
Yeah, I hear you.
But then I reverted. I said, I've been a 16-year-old boy before. And Lord knows I probably cheated on every girl I was with. And so now I had to tell myself, baby, you know what? It's a horrible thing, but you're going to walk through this. You're going to be okay. And I had to learn how to have that conversation without having the mind of the understanding of a 16-year-old boy. I had to understand a 16-year-old girl. A conversation that she would normally have with her mother.
Absolutely.
But you know what? I had to realize I was mom and dad. You know, and like I said, shortly after that, she comes in, you know, maybe like a week later, and she was like, "I'm hungry. I'm starving." She had a soccer practice, school, and all I had was lasagna. That's all I had. And because a neighbor had made a fresh one. Now, mind you, I had like 2 in the refrigerator already. Because
I know a lot of widowers are nodding their head like lasagna. I think you called it the go-to kind
I
of.
call it's the widower's meal. That's what it is, you know. And I remember that night she was like, "Daddy, if I have to eat this again, I'm gonna kill somebody." So we settled on tacos, and once I started making the tacos, you know, we sat down and laughed and played, all these things, and I hadn't seen that in the 6 weeks since my wife passed, not from her. So I said to myself, if I can keep that smile on her face, I'm gonna do it. And I went online. I got every cookbook I could find. I found my wife's old cookbooks. I call my mother. You gotta call your mom, you know? And then I got a coupon from Blue Apron. It was the meal service.
Meal service, yeah.
So I had food coming to me and ingredients and recipes. So now I'm making food. And let me tell you something. It made me look like Gordon Ramsay. I'm not even gonna lie. You know. So I started taking pictures and putting it on Facebook. My oldest daughter, she sends me a message. She said, "Daddy, you're making this?" And I said, "Yes." Then she goes, "You know, Daddy, me and my 2 friends are coming up this weekend, and I want you to make this, this, and this."
Oh, nice.
I got the ingredients. I learned how to make it. I realized that I had some talent in me. You know, honestly, I think my wife would do 2 things. She'd be extremely proud, and then she'd say, "Why didn't you have this before?"
Yeah.
You know, why couldn't you
give me one meal? 18 years, right. Not one meal.
You know? But for me, it was that point of revelation. Because I'll be honest, during that time, I was going through so much. I mean, I was drinking all the time. One of my jokes with my client was that Hennessy was my best friend. You know, because it was like, plus I was smoking a lot of marijuana back then. And I mean, anything to medicate. Feel the pain.
Yeah.
You know, the problem was that when I would sober up, it was a lot worse.
Yeah.
And once they both were like, Daddy, you could cook, I started telling myself there's something I could do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that night, I remember I'm watching a YouTube video, and the guy was talking about if you want to change your life, you got to work on, you can change your outside. And then from the outside reflection, you can start changing your inside.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, he challenged the listeners, the viewers. He said, start by just doing 50 push-ups and sit-ups. Now, mind you, at this point, Tom, I'm still drunk and high.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't do 50 push-ups. And it was almost like, seriously, like he heard me.
Yeah.
He said, you know what? Do whatever you can do. So then I did 10 push-ups and sit-ups. Felt great.
Yeah.
And, it was that endorphin rush, I guess. And jumped in the shower, cleaned myself up.
Mm-hmm.
I took my bottle and dumped it in the toilet.
Oh, great for you.
I took what was left of my marijuana
Mm-hmm.
and I opened up the bag and dumped it in the toilet as well. And I said to myself, I gotta fix this.
Yeah.
And then what was interesting, in addition to cooking, I got on this workout bug.
Mm-hmm.
It got so bad that, like, I was telling myself, I'm gonna add 10 to every set of things I do, and it was just push-ups and sit-ups at first.
Yeah.
But then I started adding, pull-ups. Then I started adding doing 6 inches and doing a plank.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to the pool. By the end of the first year, I was doing 500 push-ups,
Wow.
500 sit-ups,
Mm-hmm.
my arm hangs, everything else. And then I would go to the pool and do a good 70 laps.
Nice.
Only because, you know what? And again, it wasn't really for health purposes. Well, no, it was. It was for mental health purposes.
Mental. Yeah.
Because
Even more than the physical. I agree with you.
I mean, I was going through it.
Yeah.
And also, when that urge would come back,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to tell myself I have to replace it.
Yeah.
That was my whole thing. And
Drop down and give me 20, right?
Right.
The urge,
That was it. Because I wasn't going to AA meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's when I started understanding that, you know what? You can really make a change when you put your mind to it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something I always heard. My mom used to beat this into me. Perspective matters.
Mm-hmm.
How you choose to see things matters. When my father went away, we were single. My mother was a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
And she was raising 2 boys. But from there, she got her bachelor's, then her master's, and then her PhD.
Wow.
And all the time, she kept telling me, perspective matters.
Mm-hmm.
And she's an A minister. And what's interesting was that thought process stayed in me of making sure the perspective mattered,
Mm-hmm.
even though the religious aspect of things started kind of shifting as I got older. Because one, my wife and her family were kind of what you want to call surface Christians.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, they believed, they was all good.
Yeah.
I was a church kid, but I couldn't, once I got to the point of being able to get away, I wasn't in the church like that, the way I needed to be, And there were so many other aspects. I mean, I started really delving into the secular world. I really started looking at things differently, enjoying a lot of pleasures, And what was interesting about that was that this is personal to me. I don't preach this to anybody else, but I do believe that God will give you enough rope to hang yourself.
I agree. Totally.
And so I was allowed to go on these crazy journeys. Do me. When my wife died, though, I was still on this crazy journey. A few years later, I remember the day that I had dumped everything out and the day that I had decided to make a change, I got down on my knees and I said, God, I know I haven't been cool with you for a long time. But you know what? Yo, if you help me out of this, I'm telling you, I got you. I promise. To the rooftops, I got you. And so over time, he really did, help to bring me to a new thing. And that's when I started learning about grief and things of that nature. We were talking, and when you and I were talking, we were talking about, Dr. O'Connor's book. And it was interesting because I had literally downloaded that book 2 weeks earlier, and I listened to it because I needed to understand how the brain actually responds to grief.
Yeah, this is Mary Frances O'Connor's book, The Brain on Grief. And
yes,
powerful book. And like you said, if you understand kind of what your brain is doing, it'll give you an awareness so that you can address it and shape it.
I mean, absolutely. And I knew that there were things that I should be doing. And that's where, you said to yourself, okay, I'm reading her book or audiobook in her book, and I'm listening. I'm like, there were times where I said I knew I should be doing this, but my brain was like, you ain't gotta do this, And once you start learning the on and off mechanisms, then you can start creating a little bit better of control.
Yeah. Particularly the amygdala hijacks. So talk about that, John, and just a couple of your experiences there with triggers.
For me, it started with listening to different songs. There were songs that I would listen to that would remind me of me and my wife. That would remind me of times, and I would literally just start crying. It was crazy. I couldn't control it. Then my whole mind, my mind state was that I got to turn it off. Done. I can't deal with this. That's where the hijack comes in, because the amygdala hijack will create that flight or fight response.
Yep.
And normally, like back in the day, prehistoric times, hey, you needed that flight or fight thing. There might have been a saber-tooth tiger. But now, what's interesting is our mind still has that. Our brain still has that. But we don't have the threats that we used to have. But the mind will make you think that whatever you're going through, if it's negative, it's a threat. So the hijack is the fact that I'm listening to these songs and I'm feeling sad, and my mind is like, I did something wrong with this guy. All right, cool. We got to run. And that's where my mind went in that respect. But I had to realize that you can do two things. You have choice and you have obligation. You are not obliged to be in grief. Being in grief is a choice. The amygdala hijack will make you think you don't have a choice.
Absolutely.
It'll make you think you have to run. I had to stop. As a matter of fact, here's how I stopped. One night, I literally downloaded an album that I knew my wife should love. And I just sat there and I sat in it and cried and started feeling the emotions. What was interesting was that slowly the demon started abating. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't running.